Depression is a strange friend. It can sometimes feel like your only companion. It's the dog you try to put in the backyard when company comes over. It is being around all your favorite people, doing all your favorite things, and still finding life to be despairing. It is gray paint on rainbows. Depression is waking up stuck in your bed that feels a lot more like casket, hoping to find God in the ceiling. Depression may have my mind sometimes, but it is too weak to carry my soul. Despondency will never know eternity. Depression is now, it is not forever. Depression is now, it is not forever. Depression may have my mind sometimes, but it is too weak to carry my soul. Despondency will never know eternity. Depression is now, it is not forever.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the stream. There's so many more people than I expected to be here. How are we all? How are we doing? It's been a wild ride on the build up to this, I'll be honest. I'm like half excited, half nervous, but I can't wait to show the music. I'm so excited. Excited for story time. Yourself? I'm good, man. I'm good. Thank you. I appreciate both of you guys joining as well. It means a lot to me. Thank you. To everyone here, thank you. This is, there's been a lot of prep that's gone into this. Got your script ready. Yeah, the script's on standby, don't worry. This is, yeah, so this is going to be like a fairly informal thing. I'm not planning on making this crazy professional or whatever. I just wanted to like take some time, talk about the album and some of the songs, how they came about, what the process was going into them and stuff. It might be short, it might not. It depends if you guys have any questions in the midst. But I'll try my best to answer as many as I can, if anyone has any. Your voice is so crisp. Thanks, man. I'm glad the quality's good. So this album it does come with a story attached to it, a slight story. It's not fully fleshed out, but it's the story that I kind of had in mind throughout the process of making it. It kind of was one of those things that snowballed and became more than it actually was initially. So throughout, probably after each song, I'll take some time to talk about like the story, and I'll maybe go through some of it, some of the brief, and then afterwards I'll get into like talking about the actual track and how that came about, how it was made, etc., etc. Like I say, if there's any questions or any curiosities or anything, don't be afraid to ask. I'll do my best to answer them in between songs. But yeah, honestly, thank you all for showing up. It means a lot. I was really expecting this to be quite a small stream, but you guys have made it so much more exciting for me. So, shall we get into the first track? That is the question. Or is there anything you guys would like to say or ask or anything before we get started? Let me just get this prepped in the meantime. Get on with it, homeboy. Alright, guys, that's fair enough. So the first song on the album is Zero Gravity, and this was one of the first ones I think I released on Spotify, as well as just in general. I won't bother talking about it just now. I'll let the song play first, and then we'll get into it. So please enjoy, guys. Oh. Right, and that is Zero Gravity in its entirety. That was by far one of my favourite tracks to work on, I'll be honest. It was just the whole way through, there was always that sort of high energy feeling within it, and it was just a pleasure to make, to be honest. Never once did I feel like it slowed down too much or it was too passive or chilled. Your voice is fine volume-wise, by the way. Okay, thank you, Joseph. I appreciate that. My humble opinion, it wouldn't hurt to turn up the volume a tad. Okay, then. I was worried. I didn't want to blast everyone's ears, to be honest, so I had it at quite a reasonable volume, but if you guys want it cranked, then I'll crank it. Yeah, let me get my notes up. So, we'll go story time first, and then I'll talk a bit about the song. So, this hypothetical scene, it starts with a ship floating through space. There's a man on a shuttle, of whom his origins are mostly unknown, and throughout the ship, there are bits and pieces of debris floating around the cabin. Red warning lights are flashing. An automated voice from the ship's AI is stressing that there's been damage to the ship. The gravity field has been disabled, and the protagonist is flushed, attempting to repair the damage and get back to his feet. So that was the general. Like I say, they're quite vague at the moment because they haven't been fleshed out fully, but going into the track, that was the general consensus of what the story was trying to tell. So it starts with him in a broken ship. You know, the gravity's turned off. He's floating about frantically trying to fix everything. And that's kind of why the track went in the direction of being quite high energy. Because the way I imagined it in my head when I was making it is like in a movie that would kind of accommodate the scene quite well. Just that sort of flustered panic and the high energy stuff. Yeah, turn it up. This needs to be a movie. No worries. I'll get it cranked for the next track. in terms of the track, it started mostly as like a sort of build up to the new year for 2021. While making it, I realised how high energy it was, and I was like, this would suit very well being released on New Year. It's like a sort of party anthem almost. So that was kind of the whole theme around it. I set up a premiere on YouTube to release it bang on New Year's night and, well, day, technically. And this was also mostly to celebrate me making music for the 6 years that I've been, well, 5 at the time, 5 years that I've been doing it. And I almost saw it as like a fresh start, like a fresh slate for the new year, to start making sort of more music and more music that I felt was tailored to me and my personal style and taste. I've always kind of struggled to find exactly where I feel my music fits, because I make like different genres and there's never any kind of specific theme around them. The albums are the only things that usually tie them together, to be honest. And I do release a lot of singles as well. But it was nice to have that clean slate and be like, right, I'm going to start knuckling down on making better music and more consistent music and music that people can appreciate and also relate to a lot more. During the creation, the focus was always mostly the drums and the bass line. I wanted the high energy feel was always the focus. So I wanted everything in the track, the drums, the bass, all the instrumentation. I wanted it to kind of build around that and make you kind of feel, I don't know, like you wanted to dance, I guess. But to have that for like 4 or 5 minutes straight would be too much. So that's why halfway through I decided to put in the transitions where it kind of comes down and sort of eases you out a little bit. You can relax for a few before coming back up and then back into the chorus and into the main build up where it sort of goes back up to the full energy again. Just the kind of usual songwriting process, to be honest. But I felt it was important to like take that break and let everybody unwind. Otherwise your ears would get tired and it'd be too much. The melody was always a strong focus, just like it is in all my music. Like every song I try and make, the melodic element is always the most important to me. The drums and stuff are obviously also important because that's the punch and the kick and stuff like of the track, but the melody is always, even just listening to general music day to day, that's what I tend to hone in on and focus on, is that melody and the beauty and the sort of the story it tells alongside the rest of the elements in the track. The switch up part, it's a slight ode to the sort of lo-fi music that I make as well, because obviously it kind of drops out of that 4/4 beat and it goes into the sort of hip hoppy style drums and they're quite light. I wanted it to kind of resemble just that sort of other side of my music where it's a bit more chilled and sort of lo-fi hip hop kind of style. But in the end, I feel like it tied together quite nicely. Can really see the progression over time you've made. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. It's been a journey. It really has. 6 years is quite a long time to be making music, and sometimes it doesn't feel like that. You kind of get so caught up in the like mode, the swing of it, that you forget to actually look how far you've come. Which is why I feel like it's important to always go back and look at your older stuff and ground yourself back into that reality. Like, this is where I was, this is where I am now, and this is where I want to be. It's always about like improving and getting gradually better. And I suppose you could apply that to anything. It doesn't just have to be music. But yeah, that's the general consensus of that track, to be honest. I know it's a bit brief. I didn't want to do like a full dive and get Ableton up and start going into the nitty gritty, like how I EQ'd instruments and all that stuff, because I imagine there are soundies in here that maybe are interested in that stuff, but I feel like that would be a separate thing, maybe like another stream or something, less focused on the album. So if that interests anyone, then I'd be happy to sort something like that out. But for the time being, we'll keep it reasonably brief and just a sort of rough overview. But if you guys are ready, then we can jump into the next track, which is Stardust. One of my favourites, actually. And there we are. That's Stardust in its entirety too. It's one of my favourites. I really like the melodies that the song has in them. Like it just, I don't know, makes me feel some kind of way. It's a really beautiful song. I shouldn't really say that about my own music, but just even from an outsider view, it's like if I was listening to this and it was made by someone else, I would absolutely love it. I think that's kind of the music that I always try and make, is like the kind of music that I enjoy listening to as well. I imagine every artist in the world would probably say the same thing though. So, but yeah, anyway, back to story time. So, after the first part from Zero Gravity, so after repairing the damage to the ship, the protagonist is now exhausted. He sat himself down on the seat closest to the window and is staring out into the unknown with no clue as to exactly where he is. Passing by is the remains of stars that have somewhat imploded, also known as Stardust, and the sight is something of a spectacle. He finds himself entranced by the sight and vastness, but can't help but wonder what he plans to do to get out of this situation. And I really like that idea for this track especially. It's like the idea of just sitting in a spaceship looking out the window and just seeing all the stars and, you know, like the essence of stars coming sort of past the window as you're just drifting. I feel like that would look really beautiful. Of course you can, and you should say that about your own music. Thank you, man. I'm glad you think so. I just don't want to ever sound too vain or big-headed, you know. I think that's definitely not something I want to be or turn into. In terms of the track, this one in particular was probably one of the most interesting for me for the album, since it kind of relies sort of heavily on that dark synthwavey kind of vibe. I don't know how many of you guys listen to synthwave on the regular, but dark synthwave's always been a small passion of mine. I really like that kind of music. So that was kind of what I tried to emulate with this. Like I wanted to try and capture that feel, but to have it so dark all the way through, I felt was a bit much, which is why like the female vocals were initially like a nice sort of lift from that dark feel. It kind of, I felt like it boosted the gloominess of it a little bit to make it a bit more positive and put a bit of a positive tail on it. And then obviously after the first chorus, it switches up and goes a little bit different. And that was a really exciting turning point for me in that track, because I've had a plugin for a long time called Halftime, and what it basically does is it'll take whatever you put it on and, halftime it, so it turns it down to like half its time signature, but it also changes the key that it's in as well. So with that track, I put that on the entire track as a whole and realised that not only did it make the drums and stuff a lot more crunchy than they already were initially at the beginning, but it also changed the key of the song so much that it almost sounded like a different song, but somehow the same. It's really, like, even now it's really weird and kind of hard to explain, but at that point I wanted it to kind of take more of a shape of like a sort of classic 80s kind of track, like that sort of thing you would see in, like, I don't know, maybe like a film like Drive, or like some sort of like cliche like American sort of drama movie, that sort of thing. So that's where sort of some of the synth sounds and stuff came from, the big high sort of plucks that come in intermittently, and the little melody that plays in the background that's quoted in reverb. But I like the idea of everything being quite spaced out and distant and far away. You never sound like that. Thank you. That 80s feel has always been, I guess, a pinnacle for me when I'm making synthwave music especially. It's like, I'm always thinking about it in the context of like if it was in a film or something. And I mean, technically I guess it is in my head with these little like stories that I've written for them, but even just other films, I find it helps to make a track when you have some sort of inspiration, at least visually, behind it, because it kind of helps you formulate how it should go, the sort of ebb and flow of the ups and downs of the track. Doesn't always pan out, mind you, but no, while making this, I instantly fell in love with it just because of the way that all the instruments came together, the flow of the song, how it all changes, and just, yeah, I don't know. It's a pinnacle song in this album, I would say. It's one of them. There's a few. That's so cool that you have visuals for them. Yeah, it's not even like I don't actually have any tangible visuals. It's like sort of like images that I see in my head. I imagine it would probably be the same for like artists. Simone, maybe you could like answer this for me as someone who does do art and draw and paint and stuff. But like, you sort of see the scene in your head before you actually like put pen to paper, or in this case, like MIDI to application. I don't know. Having that visual just really helps mold the track as a whole and turn it into what you want it to be and guide you the whole way through, so you never really get lost or sidetracked or stuck. And from there, it's just about like mastering the music and mixing it and making sure that it all sounds like consistent enough to be put out where people aren't going to be like, oh my god, what's this? Yeah, you're describing it really well. Okay, perfect, thank you. I'm glad. I don't want to do it any injustice, but yeah, I don't know, it's strange. I imagine anyone here who's tried to do anything creative probably will understand to some extent. You've always got some sort of idea floating in the back of your head, but it's just trying to like materialize that into something that's tangible that you can look or listen to or whatever. And it's part of the reason why I love art in almost every form. It's so expressive and so personal and unique, and just I don't know, like I don't know where I would be without art. I imagine you guys probably all feel the same. It takes up 90% of my life, and I couldn't imagine my life without it. I don't think I'd be the person I am if I didn't have it. It's been a stepping stone for me the whole way through. But yeah, that about sums up Stardust as well. If you guys are ready, we can get into Drifter, which is probably one of the more meaningful tracks for me, especially. You'll see why when I get into it after it plays, but yeah, let me play that for you guys. Hope you enjoy. There we go. That's Drifter. Also, Ewan, what you said about like color for people who can't paint, that is like honestly one of the most perfect ways I've ever heard it described. I found myself hooked on that for a couple of seconds, like a couple of minutes after you said that, because yeah, that is honestly the best way to describe it. But this is it weird that this song gives me goosebumps, even though it's one of my tracks. Like it's I don't know. I guess the meaning behind it maybe like there's something tangible there that just like I don't know, kind of sends shivers up my spine. And the thing is, it's not even that much of a powerful track or anything. It's not really. I don't think anyone would really see that as like some kind of like monumental like change to their life or anything. But I don't know. Just I guess it's probably the meaning, which I'll get to in a second. So first of all, it is story time. I've also realised that I skipped the track by accident, so I'll just have to go back and play that one after. It was supposed to be Supernova that I played, but I played Drifter. But whatever, we move on. So that's not even going to work, because now the story's all messed up as well. Oh dear. Okay, well, anyway, I'll tell the story and you could go back and rewind it or whatever if you needed to get the story in order, but so now that the supernova is dissipated and there is no immediate cause for concern, the protagonist finds that he is truly helpless to give himself any sense of direction. The ship controls are non-responsive and he cannot repair them without help from any outside source. He's drifting endlessly with very little hope that he will ever find aid. Despite this, he has to keep going. That's what I wrote for the story element. It's kind of interesting with the context from Supernova, but we'll get to that. Say both parts of the story. Oh yeah, I could do that actually. Play Supernova then do double story time. It's up to you guys what you want me to do. I could play the track and then just speak about both of them back to the back, I guess. That also works. Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll do that. It's not too much of an issue. Okay, well in that case, here's Supernova on the back of that. Okay, so now that I've played both tracks that I was supposed to play, well, technically only one, I can get back into the story stuff, but oh my god, I love the sound of that track, and I have no idea how I managed to capture it the way I did, because like Michael, like, I said Michael, Jesus. Oh no, never mind. Like Michael said, it's very home resonance vibes, and there is a reason for that, which I'll get into during the story. But I'll read both stories back to back now, since we were missing context before, and then I'll go into the actual tracks themselves. So after a while of waiting in what seems like an endless loop of time, there's a large shake to the ship, followed by a huge bright flashes of colour. The protagonist has stumbled across a supernova within the star system and is helpless to remove himself. For a while, an endless stream of colour completely masks the cockpit and the ship windows, and the ship is hurled in a single direction, off track from the one he was originally on. All he can do is wait. And then after a while, now that the supernova has dissipated, there is no immediate cause for concern. The protagonist finds that he is truly helpless to give himself any sense of direction. The ship controls are non-responsive, and he cannot repair them without help from any outside source. He's drifting endlessly with a very little hope that he will ever find aid. Despite this, he has to keep going. So those two back to back probably make a little bit more sense now. But getting back into the song for Supernova first. From a song standpoint, this track was, like Michael said, heavily inspired by Resonance by Home, which is one of my favourite artists that does the sort of synth chill genre. I've always loved that song, and I know that it became really popular in like those like sort of vaporwave memes and stuff, or like the videos that people used to make on YouTube. That song was like a pinnacle song for that. But I always, since the beginning, wanted to learn how to make music like that. That was one of the tracks that always inspired me to want to make that kind of music. So when I found the instruments that I used for that track, especially, instantly, like as soon as I played them, I was like, oh my god, this is home resonance, like sort of like sounds. I can't believe it. And I just kind of went on a tangent, and before I knew it, I had a full song. The entire thing just feels like one big long drifting journey. It's like, I don't know, it's kind of tranquil. I find myself getting lost in it whenever I listen to it. And I can't help but think of space either. It's got a very spacey vibe to it. Home's released a lot of like really iconic songs, but Resonance was definitely probably the biggest, and it had the biggest impact on me as well. I just remember like finding it very placid to listen to while I was relaxing or studying or whatever it was I was doing. So this track is ultimately my attempt at a sort of similar track. If you were to listen to Resonance by Home, you would probably hear the minor similarities, but it's definitely different in its own right, and I'm happy about that. Like, I'm glad that it is kind of its own thing, and it's not just a carbon copy. Whether I actually succeeded in achieving that result, I'll let you guys decide, because I'm not in any position to make that comment. But it uses a lot of heavily affected synths, a lot of reverb, some delay here and there. But I've always had a bit of a fascination with reverb and the long tails that you can add to sort of make music sound really, not so much washed out, but like really distant and far away. And I guess that's like the foundation that I build my music up on. So there's always a lot of reverb involved. But this track especially, like it nailed that vibe I was going for. Gives you the feeling of being like really far away, but also somehow close enough that you can hear the music really crisp and well. And it's definitely one of the tracks that I find easiest to get lost in. Alongside this, obviously Drifter. That song, it's a little bit more sentimental to me. It has a bit more of a personal sort of attachment. It might not seem like it because, like I say, the track doesn't necessarily sound like it's anything important. But for a long time, I've been really fascinated with, like, I used to go for late night walks, like really late night, when most people should really be in their bed, to be honest. I would go for late night walks with my earphones in and just listen to music. And because it's so late, there's no cars out, there's no people walking around. It's almost like the world feels empty, like there's no one on it, but there's all these like buildings and stuff. And I find it kind of serene, like it's almost really tranquil in a weird way. So this track was kind of my attempt at replicating that feeling for myself. It was something that I always imagined while making, that it's something I would listen to while walking around at night, like late at night when there's no one around and it's really quiet and tranquil. you just kind of, you're like at one with the world almost. It's strange. Kind of sounds minorly spiritual, but because I was in like somewhat of a slump, let's say, in life, this track kind of became my sort of outlet for that, and it tied in really nicely because it was like a really expressive means to get out what I was struggling with internally in life. I won't obviously go into detail because it's not really like everybody struggles, it's not a big deal, but it's times like this when I realise like just how much music can help through the struggles and the sort of down cycles of life, and how things can kind of get thrown at you without you being able to react properly. And again, it just kind of adds to that whole aspect of art being so expressive and important and such a vital part of everyday life. Like, I don't know if you guys could imagine it, but imagine a world where there wasn't any music that you could just listen to on the daily whenever you were feeling sort of interested. I miss midnight walks. I swear by it, honestly. If there's ever a time where you feel like you're kind of in your own head too much, go for a late night walk. Wait till it's really late, there's no one out, and just put your earphones in and go. Doesn't matter if you do a lap around the block and then come back, or you go for a longer walk, maybe go to the beach, I don't know. Like, wherever you are, just find somewhere really tranquil and just disappear. Just take yourself away for a while. Stop worrying about life, stop worrying about all your issues, your stresses. Just, yeah, let the music just take you away for a while. It's almost like meditation. It's probably one of the best ways to just get inside your own head for a while, but not in a hypercritical, hyper stress filled way. So I highly recommend it. Can't imagine life without music. Nah, exactly. It's such a foreign concept, isn't it? It's a really strange idea to think that life could have no music, and there would be nothing to like attach yourself to, nothing to get you through the day, nothing to make work just that little bit more bearable, make studying a little bit more relaxed, you know what I mean? Like, it's such an important thing for so many reasons other than just the actual heartfelt, emotional side of things. And I think, yeah, that's where my passion ultimately comes from. It's taking that feeling that so many tracks used to give me when I was younger, growing up, and then being able to make my own versions of those, put them out and do that for other people where they can tie themselves to the music and go, or find it at a specific time in their life and go, you know, this song actually means a lot to me, like I needed this right now. And then they'll look back years later and be like, oh, that song, yeah. And then they think of the memory, they think of the feelings they had back in that time, in that moment. It's such a powerful medium. I call it magic because ultimately I think music and art in most forms is some kind of magic. But mostly music, because music's one of the only things I've ever found that can take you back to an exact moment in time, an exact memory, and you can feel the emotions, you can imagine everything so perfectly and vividly as to like what that time was like, that period, and what the song means. It's crazy, to be honest. The psychology behind it, I don't even want to get in there because it's just so crazy to like, it's such an amazing concept. Love an early morning, feel like you've got the world to yourself. Yeah, exactly, yeah. And early mornings as well, yeah. It doesn't even have to be at night. Night's the time I like to go out because I don't know, I like the darkness, as grim as that sounds. But yeah, early morning especially, like when it starts to get to sort of daybreak, that's also a perfect time because the birds are out, they're chirping, they're singing, you know. It's a good way to start the day if you can get up early enough for it. And obviously the walk gives you good exercise, it gets the serotonin in your brain going. It's just, I don't know, man. It's a good expression of mindfulness. It's a good practice for mindfulness, and I'm all about that. It takes up a big part of my life. But anyway, I'll stop rambling, and we'll get on to the next track. I'll make sure I don't skip any tracks this time. The next one is All or Nothing. This is a bit of a bop, I'll be honest. I like this one. But yeah, enjoy, folks. Alright, that is All or Nothing. That's definitely a lot more upbeat than some of the other ones. I like the Four to the Floor and I like the vibes. It's got very... That and Zero Grav kind of share a lot of similarities actually. But yeah, I really like that song. Small Easter egg, by the way, for anyone that's interested. The lyrics in the chorus don't actually say All or Nothing. I didn't realise it until after I made it, but the lyrics are actually plenty more than nothing, but it does kind of sound like it's saying All or Nothing, so the track ended up getting called that anyway, but just thought it was a funny thing to mention. The truth is out, yep. That's it. I've ousted myself. Don't flame me, please. Spare me. Biggest kept secret. Anyway, let's get on to the story time for this track. So, by this point in the story, the protagonist has had enough of living his life in a loop and has made the decision to start trying to come up with a solution. He's began taking apart some furniture within the shuttle, using materials from his leftover containers, and using pretty much anything he can find to try and put together some kind of toolkit that might aid him in fixing the ship and get moving again. But the issue is that he's somewhat manic and determined to get through no matter what. He's refusing to break, and that can only ever lead to the problems down the line when you're trying to rush something like that so much. So yeah, that's the next part. Interesting, juicy story stuff. But in terms of the track, it's a somewhat older track. This track's been out for quite a while, to be fair. Like, it was a solo release before I put it in the album, but I don't know, I felt like it deserved a place in the album just because it was one of my favourites even when I released it. And it sort of goes hand in hand with Mind Palace, which is why they released together on Spotify. These tracks were the tracks that I made sort of before I even had an idea for the general concept of the album. Mind Palace, All or Nothing, and Lockdown were the three that were kind of pre-made before the album, but once I'd kind of got the general concept down, I was like, nah, these really fit the vibe and the theme that I'm trying to emulate and convey, so they stuck. All or Nothing, like Zero Grav, was a lot more upbeat in its making, and I was always sort of heavily focused on the 4/4, the drum beats, the hard-hitting bass. It's there to kind of make you feel good and up, like high energy. It makes you want to, like, I don't know, exercise or dance or go for a walk or something like that, you know. It makes you quite pumped up. And funnily enough, with Gibby being here as well, that was one of the things he said, and that was why he really liked it, I think, because it was super high energy, made him feel good. It sort of gives off like 80s, almost, well, in the first section anyway, it kind of gives off like the sort of classic 80s films, like love song sort of story vibes, which wasn't initially the intention, because I think, as far as I remember, I had the chorus first before I made the rest of the track. But then when I was coming up for sections of the track afterwards, I was like, I don't want this to just be like full chorus high energy the whole time. I wanted it to kind of build up nice and slow, almost to the point that you didn't see it coming. So that intro is kind of really slow and mellow, and the guitars are there and stuff, and then it kind of builds up, and then out of nowhere, that's when the sort of build up starts with the drums, and before you know it, the chorus hits, and you're like, oh, I didn't really expect that. Like, that kind of came out of nowhere. So that was good fun working on that, and I was excited for when people heard it to see if they would like think the same thing. Yeah, the guitars and the big bright synths, I think, are probably what carry that song as much as they do. The bass line and the drums are really consistent too, but those, again, the melodic elements are always sort of the focus for me, and those melodies really tie in really nicely with that sort of hard-hitting, punchy vibe. It just, I don't know, as a package, it kind of formulated and came together really nicely. Zerdman, you're the underrated YouTuber music maker. Thanks, man. I appreciate it. The song you made called Death Itself motivated me a lot. Oh, really? I'm super happy to hear that, man. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that too. It's always nice when it has that effect on people, where it like puts them in that zone that I sometimes get from other people's music, where it like it makes you want to do the things that you want to do, or, you know, achieve the goals that you've set for yourself and that sort of stuff. And again, it just ties into what we were discussing earlier about why music's so important. But I'm glad I can give you that feeling, man. It means a lot. Death Itself is a very interesting track. I wish Jadex was here to talk about it with me, but unfortunately he's busy today. That track was a lot of fun to work on. It was good doing vocals for it as well, because it was something I hadn't really done before. But yeah, anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent of talking about tracks that aren't in the album. But at the end, if anybody wants to talk more about like any of the other tracks that I've made that aren't in this album, feel free. I'll answer any questions. I'll do my best to give you some insight into those tracks as well if you're interested. But yeah, for the time being, let's dive into the next track if you guys are alright with that. Let's go. Oh, this one's one of my favourites. I like this one. There we are. 2 minutes and 13 seconds, just pure relaxation. That track means a lot to me. Not in the same way that things like Drifter and that did, but just I've always wanted to make something really atmospheric and ambient as opposed to like some really hard-hitting music. Like a lot of the chill hop stuff and that, it is very relaxing, but the drums are always kind of really upfront and punchy, and they drive a lot. Like they kind of give it that sort of brick feeling almost, like something's punching you in the chest. But to make something like this where it's so like unreliant on the drums and more just literally just all of the atmosphere and the melodies and the way it all kind of ties into each other, I absolutely loved making this. And the funny thing is, it wasn't even initially intended to be in the album. It was a very last minute thing. It was supposed to just be an intermissionary track, like what Verky was saying about how all his favourite songs are just intermissions. Just curious to know how old you are. I'm 24, my dude. 24. I'm still a young boy. But yeah, like Verky said, it is an intermissionary song. It's supposed to just be filler for the album. Like it's a kind of break between both halves of the album, where the first half has a lot of sort of high octane songs. The second half has quite a few as well. I wanted something to space the two out, where you could just kind of relax and, I don't know, just unwind from all the hard hitting drums for a while, you know. But it ended up turning into something a little bit more than that for me. Like it's after I made it, I found myself listening to it on repeat for a good couple of days afterwards, just because I could do whatever in the background and have it playing, and it was so relaxing. It was very, very chilled. But anyway, let's get on to story time again. So, after many unsuccessful attempts to repair the damage and the endless fight with himself over whether he should even bother trying to continue, he slumps down in the cockpit, defeated. As he looks up and out of the window, he's taken aback by what's in front of him. A huge body of interstellar clouds, forming beautiful shapes and passing to and from each other at will. It resembles a dance made out of wonderful colours and alongside the stars surrounding it. There is almost a peace to be found. For this moment in time, he feels nothing. He thinks nothing. All he does is watch the dance and admire space for its vastness and unpredictability. And I really liked writing that, to be honest, because a lot of the time that's kind of how I like to perceive space. It's just vast and beautiful and just, it's an escape almost from, well, this planet and all the stress and stuff that comes from your life. It's a nice thing to think about when you're trying to relax, and it just kind of, just imagine you on a spaceship just floating through space really slowly. You could listen to the music, you could look out the window and just imagine all the things you would see. Space is crazy, but I'm not a space scientist by any means, so I won't get into the nitty-gritty. But the whole space theme around the album, I don't know, it just felt right, especially for this genre of music where it's so distant and wavy and chilled. In terms of the song, Nebula was, like I say, it was a very last-minute addition. Initially, it was never intended to be included, and it didn't really sound like it does now either. And when I found it before I put it in the album, it was just a couple of loops, but it had some like kind of synthwavy drums, like some crunchy, punchy drums. And listening back to it after having so long waited before going back to it, it didn't sound right anymore. I wanted to change it. And with that melody, I started working on some ideas, the ambience and stuff in the background. And before I knew it, I knew exactly where I wanted to go with it. It just had this atmospheric, really soft feel to it. And I remember being in Discord with Verky and some of the others and talking about it at the time and how I was really excited about making it and releasing it. And I showed it to them. And Verky had mentioned about making some really subtle drums, just something there percussively to carry it, but not too in your face to the point where it's right in the front of the track and hitting it really hard. And it was probably one of the best decisions I ended up making, to be honest. That, alongside all the sporadic placement of the melodies and the little plucks and stuff, the pads carrying it all, it culminated into this huge, beautiful, melodic, I don't know what to call it, like cake almost, just a big, I'm so happy it made it into the album. It deserves to be in there, I think, even though it was just a sporadic, spur-of-the-moment decision. It's supposed to kind of lack a lot of the immediate elements of a track, and that, I guess, is what separates it from the rest of the album, and that's also why it's so short. Everything else is so upfront and punchy. I didn't want to make an album that was just full of hit after hit after hit, because I feel like your ears get tired after a while and you kind of know what to expect and it becomes quite samey. So it's nice to just throw in the odd bit of ambience or intermission, some dialogue maybe, that sort of thing. It's part of the process, and it's good for sound design stuff as well, if anyone's ever interested in that kind of thing. Big long tails on the reverb, it's all very distant and a lot of delay as well, just to let things carry themselves without much input from me. I just had to pick the right notes and the right melodies and how they intersect into each other. You don't ever want to have two elements where they sound too off or not. Like everything kind of wants to hold hands with the next thing in the track. That's what I find with music. And it's almost like a big jigsaw puzzle. That's what's so fun about production as a whole. And I highly recommend it to anyone that has any slight interest in music production. It is difficult, I won't lie to you, but it's also incredibly rewarding, and it's not as difficult as you think. As long as you have a basic grasp of what good music sounds like to you, you could make absolute bangers in no time. You just have to stick to it. I need to check the chat because I've got my thing up. Pretty sure he's Sweet 16. Big fat delicious cake. Yep. A big musical cake, a big sound cake. That's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, that's pretty much most of the insight into Nebula. Like I say, There's not a lot I can talk about because it is just an intermissionary track, but for what it is, I feel like it was a nice addition, and it's really fleshed out what would have just been a consistent 4/4 kind of usual beat track. So without further ado, let's continue to A Million Years. This one's a little bit different from the rest, I'll be honest. But yeah, enjoy. There we go. That is that is A Million Years in its entirety. That was actually one of the tracks I wasn't entirely keen on when I made it, but now that it's in the album alongside the rest of the songs, I do really like it, and it does have its place, it does fit. It's a little bit different because it's a bit more of a darker side than some of the other songs. Like the melodic elements are still there, but it's definitely like the bass lines and stuff are a lot more like gritty and gloomy and dark, and they tell a bit of a darker story, which is funny because I guess the story as a whole is kind of taking a bit of a dark turn as it goes on to. Speaking of, we'll get into it just now. So, in his frustration, no, sorry, not in his frustration. His frustration has turned to despair now. All he can think about is the life he left behind to go on this journey, and those he left with it, mainly his wife, of whom he hasn't seen in a long time now. He's inside his head, reminiscing on simpler times, where he was with the ones he loved and happy. He wished he could revisit those times and see her again. The lack of human interaction has begun to take its toll, and he doesn't know if he has the strength to keep going any longer. And it really ties into the name of the song really well with that part of the story, because like, yeah, a million years, and then the lyrics and stuff, it all kind of comes together nicely. It's like that idea of reminiscing on something that you had that you can no longer kind of access anymore. Some might even call it a love story in a way, but it's not particularly. But I guess everyone can somewhat like appreciate and relate to that in some way. Heartbreak, yo. In terms of the track, it was one of the first to make it into the album, not including the tracks that had released before, like Lockdown and All or Nothing and stuff like that. This was probably one of the first album-based like songs that I had in mind from the beginning, and this kind of kickstarted the whole vibe of the album from the get-go. It was at this point, after making this, that I realised that I kind of wanted it to be themed around space and just the vastness and the idea like being sort of drifting and floating through. I wanted to experiment a lot more with like dark sounds and gritty sounds, which is why the bass is the way that it is. It's quite punchy, the drums are really hard. A lot of the album has some of that element in it, but this one especially I feel like it kind of goes a little bit harder on the bass than any of the other ones do. But I also wanted to tell a story of sort of wanting for something that you can't have, which ties into the story, like being lost in space. You wish you could go back to see the ones that you love, but you can't because you're trapped. And in a lot of ways, sometimes that's kind of how I feel in sort of general day-to-day life. Not to get all pedantic and horrible, because this is an uplifting stream, but, you know, I guess everybody kind of has a moment like that where they kind of feel stuck. And this song is kind of an ode to that feeling. It's like wanting to go back to simpler times, but not being able to, but there's an element of like hope and a lift in there that's like, things will get better and you can push through it. It relies heavily on sort of bright synths with like a really dark undertone from the bass to convey the sort of anger and frustration, not only of the character in the story, but also just that I guess I was feeling kind of at the time, just being really frustrated at where I was and wanting to be further than I actually am. A reasonably human response, let's be honest. Sad. Yeah, it is a little bit sad, but no, I don't want everybody to sit there and feel sorry for me or anything, because that's not, it's nice for you guys to get the personal relation to these tracks from me, because normally you'll just hear the track and maybe associate it to whatever you decide to associate it to at the time. But when you hear it from me and what it means to me, maybe it will start to mean something different for you the next time you listen to it as well. It kind of has that like knock-on effect, I like to think. And it's nice to be able to sort of speak about it briefly. It was initially going to be called Robot Rock because of the synth that comes in halfway through. The bass line and stuff changes, and it reminded me a lot of like robots for some reason. I don't know why. It's just, it had a very digital kind of like robot-y sound to it. But last minute, once it got into the album and stuff, I was like, nah, that doesn't sound, particularly spacey. So it ended up getting called A Million Years instead, which I do prefer, to be honest. Once the vocals were in it and stuff, that was the cementing point, I think, for me conveying the message that I wanted. That sort of lost, can't get back. But yeah, as we go along, these tracks just get more and more fleshed out. It's like They all have a different story to tell. And I hope that after listening to them all on the stream and hearing me talk about them and stuff, when you guys do go back, you'll remember what I've discussed and maybe think about my meaning and why they sound the way they do, and maybe you'll find a bit of a different emotion coming from them afterwards. Because I know that it's really easy to hear a song and associate it to something totally different to what the artist probably intended, but that's the beauty of art. That's what I love about it. But yeah, without further ado, I guess we'll move on to Mind Palace, which is, again, another one of my favourites. I absolutely love this track. I love the way it progresses. But yeah, have fun, enjoy. Man, that drum roll in the second chorus gets me every time. It gives me goosebumps. I don't know why. I just, oh my god, the way the vocals come in and then the drum fill just like drives it right back into the chorus again. Like I say, that probably has to be one of my all-time favourite songs that I've ever made. Not even from like a production or technical standpoint, but just from the general vibe that I was able to capture with it. It's so synthwave and it's so 80s and it's just, It's literally like one of the most perfect examples I've ever managed to replicate in terms of that genre of music and what it sounds like. It never gets old. I will probably listen to that forever. Very progressive. Yeah, it does. It kind of builds up, then comes down, and then builds up again. But I don't know. I don't know how I managed it. It's some kind of magic. But that song honestly crafted itself, I think. It didn't take much from me. Anyway, I'll quickly fire back into story time again. So, story time with Dreeme. So, with his thoughts spiraling out of control, he's beginning to lose himself in the madness of being stranded alone in the void of space. With nothing to fall back on, he resorts to the only thing left he can try and do to protect his mental state. Now, growing up, he was always highly intelligent, and he stumbled across the idea of a mind palace at a relatively young age. Throughout his life, he began manifesting it and training to use it effectively as an escape when things got too tough. It also helps with memory, but this wasn't required in this case. With his last piece of sanity, he clung to the palace in his mind to shield him from the increasing stress of the situation that he was in. And I really like the concept of mind palaces. I don't know how many of you guys have ever heard of them before, but they're so intricate and really cool to think about. I don't mind going into a little bit of detail, but it's essentially the concept of like creating like a place in your mind, like it could be a house, it could be a street, it could be anything, an office room, that sort of thing. You like create this visual space in your mind, and then if you want to remember stuff or if you want to escape for a while, you can go to this place. And for memory, it's apparently really effective as a visual memory like technique, because if you have a piece of information that you want to remember, you could imagine yourself writing it on a bit of paper or a whiteboard or something like that, and then you can hang it in the room of the place in your head, or put it in a filing cabinet or something like that. And it makes it easier for you to go back and remember it in the future because you associate it with like something visual, to the point where you go back into the room, you go into the filing cabinet, or you look at the wall and it's written there for you, and then boom, like it's just straight into your memory again. And that whole concept always really like it was exciting to me. Like I don't really know how to do it, unfortunately. It's something you have to practice and really train to do, but that's kind of what this song was based on, and that's the vibe that it gave me listening to it. It's like the sort of, maybe not, it sounds a bit more epic than it would be just putting stuff in a filing cabinet in your head, you know what I mean? But like, just that idea, like being in your own head and sort of trying so hard to keep away the sort of insanity that's creeping up on you, especially in the context of the story. It works really well. At least I find anyway. Like All or Nothing, the track was always kind of destined to be more upbeat, same as Zero Gravity and stuff as well. And I remember once I found the main hook, which is the part that plays right from the beginning, that sort of doo-doo-doo-doo-doo, that was it. The track from there on already had its direction. It had exactly what I wanted to do, and it was just a case of getting all the right elements together and then letting it kind of progress itself. And I think that's why that track progresses so naturally, because I didn't really write the song wrote itself. And it's very rare that happens when you're making music, but when it does, it's always like so good because it takes so little input from me. I don't have to stress over things, I don't have to worry about things sounding exactly right. It was one of those, it was just a complete out of the blue track, and it just took me by storm, and before I knew it I had it finished. I think it only took me like about a day or two to craft, and then from there it was just mixing and making sure it was ready to go out. Yeah, in a matter of days, I had the track finished. I wanted it to be sort of recognisable and have that sort of key synthwave vibe to it, which again, like I was saying earlier, I feel like I've managed to capture that quite well, that sort of element and that essence of like what synthwave really should sound like, or what it does sound like when you go listen to other people's music. And my favourite part in that is the second build up, where the vocal comes in and then it builds up, and the drum fill, it just gets me. It's like it's leading into something really epic, and if it was in a film scene, I feel like it would fit really well with some sort of action or like, like crescendo event where like something really important's just happened and things have kind of gone in a generally interesting direction, I guess. It's kind of interesting to talk about these because I'm not used to talking about them like this, going into so much depth and having to discuss them. But fundamentally, that is Mind Palace in its entirety. Both the story element that I had in my head at the time and the general sort of creation of the track. It's not particularly exciting because, like I say, it kind of made itself. There wasn't much input from me, but I hope you all liked it. I really like it personally. I find it just puts me in a groove. I could probably listen to that and play games or something and just be like totally in the zone, you know. Next on the list is Cyclone, which is a very, very old song. It's one of my first, actually, but I felt like it deserved a place in the album, and I hope once you hear it you will too, so enjoy. There we have it. That's Cyclone. That song's interesting to listen to now because, like I say, it was a really old track. I think it was one of the few first songs that I put on SoundCloud. That was back before I had started YouTube and started uploading music to Spotify, sorry. So for it to finally make its way to Spotify is kind of a big deal to me, because the connotations from it are, I mean, it was just when I was like starting out music, I wasn't all that comfortable with the software. I wasn't all that clued up on how to use the plugins and stuff. I didn't have any really good high quality plugins. So for the track to turn out the way it did, with what little I had at the time, still kind of amazes me. Just, I've, even back then, I still somehow had that focus on melody and like the beauty in the melodics, and that's what kind of takes me back. It's nice to ground myself back into that and remind myself that that is the kind of music that I want to keep making, even when I did back then. It's always been kind of the same thing. In terms of the story for this song, at this point, the helplessness is becoming all too much. As time goes on, our protagonist is becoming more and more manic. With desperation comes mistakes, and with no one else there to guide him, he's clawing for some semblance of normalcy, or normality, I guess you could use as well. Pacing back and forth around the shuttle, throwing things around, breaking some of the softer objects, and screaming at himself within the walls of the ship. Is there really no way out? That's all I've got written for that part, but yeah, like I said, the album starts to take a bit of a darker turn towards the end. But it's interesting when it ties in with the music, and when you listen back and sort of hear both together, it gives it a bit of a different vibe. Cyclone was probably one of the first songs I made that I was really happy with, I think. It kind of had all the right elements to it that I'd been trying so hard for a long time to like capture, like the drums sounding so crisp and retro, the synths sounding so dreamy but not too in your face. They don't sound too whiny. There's nothing sharp or kind of jarring about it when you listen to it. And although I probably could go back and tweak that song, but I probably won't, just for the sake that it's important for me to be able to look back on that and be like, you know, that was me, and now I am here and I've progressed so much. I've always kind of loved the sort of melancholy attached with this genre of music. Like, every time I listen to synthwave or synth chill or anything in that sort of vein of genre, it's got this kind of melancholic feel to it, almost like you're kind of stuck in an era that you weren't necessarily even born in. I know that I wasn't born in the 80s. I'm a 90s child, so I guess this music has more of an impact on me because I didn't live in the 80s, and I kind of wish I could have went back to see what it was like. I know that the UK 80s was a lot different from the American 80s, but it's the American ones that that are always kind of fantasized about, you know, like the Miami beaches and the old classic Ferraris and rollerblading and that sort of stuff. That's kind of the concept of synthwave when I think about it as a genre. That's what I get in my head. And being able to capture that kind of vibe, just, I don't know, it fills me with so much happiness, and it takes me back to a time I didn't even live, like I wasn't even alive. I feel like it probably has the same sort of effect for other people as well. Yeah, it's definitely an important track to me, just for it being so old, being one of my classic tracks. And it definitely, I think it's kind of been leading up to this point where it deserved to be in an album, because of what it is and how important it was as a stepping stone for me to start progressing further. All of these, pretty much every song I've ever made has always been kind of like an experiment for me. There's always some element in each song that is like a test run or a practice or me learning something new. And it's those elements that I always get hooked on as I'm making the track. Obviously, drums are drums, synths are synths, that sort of thing. Like, they're always going to be the same thing, but there's just a way or a method that I'll employ for one song that I've never done before, and it ends up working out, and it's like, oh my god, like this is a new tool for me. I can now use this in the future to emulate similar results for something different. And yeah, it's part of what's exciting about music. It's like a giant jigsaw puzzle, and you're putting the pieces together every day. It's what keeps it interesting. It never gets boring making music because of that. It's a climb, it's a journey, it's an experience, and it's educational. I'm always learning, I'm always improving. There's never a day where I'm not learning something new whenever I boot up Ableton and start trying to make music. And that's it. That's where the itch comes from. That's the hook. That's what gets me. I imagine it's the same for you, Simone, with art, and for many other creators with all different kinds of things, YouTubers, you know, like making content. It's, as long as you don't overdo it, it's exciting and it's fresh and it's new, and every day is a new journey and a new adventure, and you can tell a story. And I think that about wraps it up for Cyclone, to be honest. From there, we're moving on to Onslaught, which is very heavily movie inspired, I would say. You'll probably hear why once you hear it, but yeah, have fun, enjoy. And there's Onslaught. I really like that one. It reminds me so much of like older movies, like sort of like, it has very retro horror movie like sort of vibe to it. It always sits really nicely with me because it was never something I really imagined myself making, but after I made it, I was super happy with it. I just like how it turned out. It's very sort of epic. It's just like it's leading up to something, some sort of horror scene or something. And funnily enough, the story does kind of tie into that a little bit. It might sound a little bit cliche, so I do apologise if it does, but this is just the direction the story ended up kind of going in. In my head, it kind of gets more dark towards the end. So, without any warning, the system AI is jolted to on, accompanied by a loud bang and a rock of the ship. Throughout drifting through the void, the ship's signature was picked up by some wandering scrappers looking to take both parts and hostages. Without any way to navigate, the only option is to take the hits and wait for a chance to make a move. If they inevitably board, round after round piles into the sides, top and bottom of the ship, but the hull is still stable. They aren't looking to destroy it, they want to disable it. With a weapon at the ready, he bides his time. It's kind of tying into the next song really nicely. You'll see why I want to tell the story for that too. But yeah, in terms of the actual focus of the song, at the time, it was always to try and capture the magic of like the old 80s retro horror movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, those kind of films. Because I always really liked the kind of like cliche, almost cringy in some ways, like 80s sort of like horror flicks, like the soundtracks to go to them. Like I say, they're really cheesy, but they do what they're supposed to do. They do kind of like emulate. And I remember like some of my parents saying that back in the days when those released, that like they always found the soundtrack to be like quite accompanying to the horror that was like shown at that, like in those films. You watch them now and it's like they're not scary at all, but it's funny to think that back then that was considered horror compared to what it is now. But yeah, that was the general consensus of that song. It was just to capture that as much as I possibly could. I really like cinematic music, and I always kind of liked the concept of having my music behind more than just being a track that you would listen to on like passively. I would love to get into like sort of film design or, you know, something along those lines where I could really like dig into scenes and to tell a story through the music and have it sort of ebb and flow nicely with the scene so that it all comes like neatly bundled. But maybe that's experience I'll get at some point. I'd love the chance. It's kind of why the instrumentation is the way that it is. The big synth stabs, the sort of horror-esque lead, the tom fills to like sort of really drive home that like, it's almost like a desperation, like a, I don't know, like an essence of like you're rushing, like you're panicked, that sort of thing. It helps sort of drive that feeling a little bit. It's definitely a nod to the classics, with a slight personal twist on it from like me and like what I've discovered making music and the style that I like to make. It's kind of got a bit of both, I guess. I definitely feel like it kind of captures my sound specifically, like when you hear all the other songs and then you hear that one too. It's like, I think you probably could hear it in the movie, but you can also kind of listen to it and know that it is like a track from me or Dreeme. And it's always nice to be inspired by other elements that aren't necessarily the thought that you have in your head initially. To be able to like take that opportunity to go back to the classics, re-emulate them. I don't know. Making music's so fun, especially with the amount of inspiration, and it's probably similar for drawing and painting and stuff as well. It's like you could draw inspiration from so much, from pretty much anything, and then turn it into similar but its own thing. It's, I don't know, it's almost indescribable, to be honest. I would recommend creative media to anyone because it's such a good way to express yourself. It's a good way to get ideas down. It's a good way to like take from something that you've maybe recently done, or maybe even something that you haven't. Sometimes inspiration just strikes at the most random moments, like when you're making a sandwich and you're just like, oh, that lead would sound really good actually if it went like this, and then before you know it, you're back to the track and you're fiddling with things and tweaking things. And yeah, sometimes a track isn't just made in like a few hours. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's blitzed, and other times it's like it can take days, weeks, months to get to the end point. But it's all part of it. It's the exciting part. It's like, when is this going to finally be done, and when can I say, okay, this is finished, I'm happy with this, it's time to put it out and let everyone else hear it. But yeah, I'll try not to ramble too much anyway. and Lockdown is next, which is a bit of a longer song. It's probably one of the longest songs on the album, if not the longest. And it's another classic song. It was on SoundCloud before it was anywhere else. But yeah, if you guys haven't heard it before, then I really hope you enjoy it. And you can appreciate it for what it is, despite it being sold. So yeah, enjoy. there we have it. That's almost 7 minutes worth of a song. I have no idea why I felt the need to drag it out so much, but you know, again, it was a learning thing, and it's kind of become a stepping stone track too. It's like a fundamental to helping me progress to the point that I'm at with the music that I make. I really, really like that track, even though it's a bit kind of eerie and has like the screams and stuff in it. It was a nice addition at the time, and the build-ups are still pretty good considering their age. But yeah, it's one of those tracks. It's kind of hard to believe it's so old, and it does fit really nicely within the rest of the album as well, despite it being made so long ago and not really being necessarily tied into the album that it's now in. It's kind of crazy how things work like that. How it must have just been fate, you know, like it must have been meant to happen. But yeah, that's the second last song in the album, guys. We're almost at the end, believe it or not. In terms of the story, let's continue. You can get more insight into this man's journey. So, as soon as the other ship docks, the protagonist is ready, his heartbeat throbbing in his ears. Every sound is as if he were in an isolation chamber. The steps get closer and closer until the whoosh of the doors opening is his cue to go. He lunges at the first, through the door with all of his might, but the trespasser is ready for him. He guards himself, and they begin to struggle, throwing each other against different surfaces within the ship, until finally the comrade behind him decides enough is enough. The last thing the protagonist feels is a blunt blow to the head before fading to black. It's a little bit of a tie-in to the ending. I feel like it ties in really nice, and you'll see why once I get onto that section. But it's definitely where the story starts to take a bit of a dark turn. And I'm hoping that all of this I can make tie into the part 2 when it finally releases. I have no idea when that'll be, by the way. But I do definitely plan on making a part 2 for this album. And it'll be filled with a lot of the other synthwave songs that maybe didn't make it into this one, or newer stuff that I come up with that I feel like fits the vibe. So you've got that to look forward to in the near future, as well as more lo-fi and chill hop and all the stuff that a lot of people know me for. In terms of the song, like I say, it's one of my oldest tracks. It's probably, I think it might actually be one of the first songs I ever made. And it's definitely one of the first songs I ever had any attachment to. Again, it was albeit a different time, it was a very rough point in my life that when I made that track. And that was sort of my way of emulating how I was feeling at the time. Kind of frustrated and stuff. A lot of the screaming and stuff is kind of meant to emulate that in a way. But it also ties really nicely to the story. And the track by no means is perfect. Like, even now I wouldn't say I'm particularly happy with the way it's mixed, and I don't think some of the elements are quite as crystal clear as they could be. I think the synth drags on a little bit too long. There's a lot that I don't like about it, but there's just as much that I do. And I'm surprised at how well it holds up compared to a lot of my newer music, in terms of like how consistent it is with the melodies and the way things come together. You can definitely see the old and the new, if that makes sense. Like, you can see the elements of these older tracks and my newer tracks too, but just in a more refined, sort of professional, better sounding way, it kind of gets me. It's nice to go back and hear that even then. The song kind of gives off like a sense of urgency, which I guess is why it fits so well for this segment of the story and also being in the album. And it's very gritty, it's very sort of down tempo, and there's a sort of boominess to the bass. It's very like, it's like a very saw wave, like rough on the ears almost, but not in like an unpleasant way, just to sort of give off that impression. And to be honest, although there is a lot that I don't like about it, even now, looking back, I probably wouldn't change anything, just because in my head, it might sound a bit backwards, but the imperfections of this track are what make it perfect to me, because it is a clear sign of my like jump from making really crap music in my bedroom with very little tools to then getting to a point where I felt like I was serious and I really wanted to make high quality, better music, and I wanted to improve my craft, and I wanted to get to the point even that I'm at now, which is funny to think back on. being where I was then, thinking I wanted to be where I am now, and where I am now, I want to be somewhere else. Like, I want to be so much better than I am already. Like, it's just a never-ending struggle. But these tracks are the ones that I go back to and listen to after. Usually every new release, I'll go back and listen to these songs, these older songs, and they help ground me back into, like, what was it back then that made me make the music that I make, and what about it was so iconic and pinnacle to me as an artist, to my style, my way of doing things. It's a nice way to keep yourself in a groove, so I'm never forgetting where I came from. My roots are always, like, important to me, that sort of thing. And it's a great example of why you should always save your work and be proud of it, because even if it doesn't meet the standards you want it to live up to, it will still meet standards that when you look back on, you can then reference and be like, okay, I had an idea here, it maybe didn't turn out as great as I wanted it to, but now I have the knowledge and skills that I can use to potentially remake something similar, or even remake the same song, or paint the same picture, that sort of thing. It's a progression, it's a movement, it's part of creativity, I guess. It's like just gradually sifting through the ups and downs of it all. But yeah, I don't know if anyone else does that, but I feel like it's definitely important to go back and, like, look at old stuff, look at where you came from, and remember how you felt back then and where you wanted to be. Because I guarantee where you are now is probably miles ahead of where you wanted to be, or where you were back then, and it was exactly where you wanted to be. I feel like I'm speaking in tongues and riddles now. I should probably stop, but I hope that made sense. If it didn't, then I do apologise. It's kind of hard to, like, get into words. But yeah, with that kind of covers lockdown, and it's final time. It's time to get on to the last track. Homesick. This is another one of the new additions to the album. This one wasn't particularly planned until last minute, but I'm really glad that it fits the ending to the entire story and the entire album really well, and you'll see why when I play it. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it. I hope this has been fun for y'all. I hope it's been informative. I hope I haven't just rambled too much and made no sense. But yeah, I really do appreciate you guys turning up and sitting and listening to me, and just appreciating the music that I've put so much hard work and effort and time into. I know it doesn't seem like it, but so much work that goes in behind the scenes. So thank you all, honestly, for the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much. Let's get on with it.
I hate the way you talk to me, and the way you cut your hair. I hate the way you drive my car. I hate it when you stare. I hate your big dumb combat boots, and the way you read my mind. I hate you so much it makes me sick. It even makes me rhyme. I hate it when you make me laugh. Even worse when you make me cry. I hate it when you're not around. And the fact that you didn't call. But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
And that's it. That's the final song on the album. What a way to close it out, really. Even listening to it now, it's like, it's such a perfect song for closing the entire album out. It fits so nicely, the guitar at the end, everything just ties in super well, and it's, I don't know, it's indescribable. I have no words. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been a journey making it, and even more of a journey being here and being able to talk about it tangibly and explain the method, and let all you guys in on a little bit more insight as to sort of how my production works and how my brain works and how I come about these tracks. I feel like it's been a long time coming, and it's important for you guys to be able to see that and take that for future reference for any new content that I end up making. You guys can listen to it and maybe think a little bit deeper and be like, I wonder why he made that, or I wonder what he was feeling when he made that sort of thing. Like, because that's how I look at art all the time. I always like to try and imagine where the artist's coming from, why they did what they did, and why it sounds the way it does and stuff. But yeah, honestly, thank you all so much. I still have a little bit of story and stuff to share, and it closes out quite nicely into potentially the second album as well, so I'll get on with that. Encore, death itself. Okay, I'm sure I could play some other songs for you guys if you'd be up for it afterwards. I'll just, I'll kind of skim through the rest of what I've got written, and then we can just jam for a little bit before I call it, I guess. It's the least I can do for you guys after sitting through this 2-hour long stream listening to me speak for so fucking long. Like, it was never intended to be as long as it was, but I mean, I'm happy that it has, and you guys have interacted so much, and it's been so nice having you guys like letting me know how you feel and what you are thinking about it and stuff. It's so good. It's so nice. So on the Homesick front, the last part of the story, waking up rather disorientated with a hard thump in his head, he realises that he's been cooped up in a small cell, most likely at the bottom of the cargo hold. There is no bed, there is no seats, nothing. Just cold, hard metal and an overwhelming chill passing throughout the room. As he sits up, he can't help but wonder if this is the end of his tale. Attached around his neck is the only last thing that reminds him of home, this holotape dangling from a long metal chain hidden under his suit. He opens it up to reveal a message left by his wife a few days before he left. The words she used were harsh, but he kept it to remind him that no matter how far or how problematic, they loved each other with everything they had. It was his only comfort now, as he sat broken on the floor. And I feel like it's a really nice way to tie out that final message for that album. It's like, where could it go from here? Is he going to get out of his situation? Who knows? I guess I'll have to think it up. But yeah, that's kind of where the track for Homesick came from, and that's why that audio sort of snippet from the film is in at the beginning and stuff as well. It's to tie in that whole idea, him like looking back on something that he received, like a message, and just wishing he was there, instead of where he was, being trapped. It was the last song on the album, and once again, it wasn't initially planned to be a part of it until last minute when I saw the opportunity for it to tie into the story. The small samples from the movie 10 Things I Hate About You with Heath Ledger, which I've seen multiple times and I really, really like it. But I remember that scene vividly, and it was something I felt would fit really well into the genre as well as that track specifically, just with the feel that it had, that kind of melancholic, really sad vibe. So that's why it's in there, but it ended up tying really well into the overall album story too, so it was a kind of win-win, thankfully. And it really, that vocal segment kind of really helped to push the final close on the album and the song and the story that I wanted to tell. There is a slight nostalgia, just like some of the other tracks, and there is a sadness to it as well, and it only sort of continued the more I went on with the track. It started quite emotional, but then as I got on further and further into the track, especially once like the guitars come in and it kind of slows down towards the end, that was like that was the final point for me. And I remember at the time making it, it did hit me pretty hard. It made me quite emotional, just because like that epic sort of solo at the end with the guitar and stuff like that. I've heard that in so many other tracks, but it just adds so much raw power to what has been an entirely long journey of this entire album coming to. And it tied it up and wrapped it up in a nice little bow, and then was just like, right, put me out into the world and let me be experienced by everyone. I'm so happy to be where I am with this album finished. And the guitar solo was kind of inspired by a lot of artists that I listen to. I listen to a lot of bands like the Midnight and other artists like Home and stuff, where sometimes they've got some really lovely sax solos or guitar solos in their tracks. I guess a lot of that was inspired by that. I really wanted to kind of capture that sort of, especially since I don't really play guitar. It was nice to have that element in it without having to actually do anything on my end. And the funny thing about that track and that specific sound especially is that it's not actually a guitar, believe it or not. It's a synth that I run through a guitar amp and did lots of tweaking to after some EQing and some other effects. I managed to get it sounding really like a guitar, and I remember being super excited at the time. I was like, I cannot believe that this isn't a guitar. It sounds so much like one, like an electric running through an amp with a big fat solo. It hit different, it really did. And it's an effect that I would love to use in tracks to come as well. It's something that I think I'll keep in my book of techniques. And I remember it being stuck in my head for a while after I made it as well. And to be honest, like I said earlier, every single song on the album has a different story to tell. And all I hope for is that the next time you guys find yourselves listening to it, that you can take some of what I've explained today, or even some of your own influences and experiences, and tie them to the music, and maybe it'll have a bit of a deeper meaning for you next time, because I know sometimes a song can just be a song, but it's always been more than that to me, and I think probably always will be, oddly enough. It's just, yeah, I don't know, it's an expression, it's an essence of me that I could put out into the world for people to experience without having to really say any words, unless I'm singing. Obviously that's different, but creatives are incredibly weird. We'll definitely do this again. Encore, death itself, encore. Didn't expect to get my heart broken tonight. Save him. Nah, don't worry guys, I'm okay, I'm good. I'm good. I'm in a good place. And it's even better having you guys here to share this with. It makes me feel so much better. But yeah, with that ultimately wraps up the album overview. Like that's it, that's everything. I've covered the tracks, I've covered the story, I've talked a lot, probably over talked at points, repeated myself a lot, but we got there in the end, and I'm so happy that you guys joined me for the journey to explain it. I agree, creative folks are weird. Stares at Simone. Oh, I love it. Don't worry, Simone, I understand, I really do. Maybe not from an art point, but definitely from a creative point. It can be a wish-washy style of, I don't know, art form, creation. I don't really know what the word would be, to be honest, but just, yeah. It's very up and down. It has its peaks, it has its troughs. It's an experience, that's for sure. And I hope anybody else in here that is a creative can maybe use this as some kind of like stepping stone for them to start putting their stuff out for other people to experience, because art is to be shared, and I know it's difficult, especially when you're just starting something, you don't have the confidence to push the way you would like to, or have the experience to do the things you want to do. But it's so important, if you want to go that route, to get stuff out, do it. Put it out there, let people experience it. It might not be the best thing in the world, but once you've put it out, you can accept it for what it is, say bye-bye to it, and then move on to the next. And you'll definitely have always learned something through that, through just doing that. It doesn't matter if it's great or amazing, it doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to be what you can do with your ability at the time, and you can always improve later. But yeah, if there's anyone in here that wants to do similar stuff, be it art, be it music, be it film, be it any other creative medium whatsoever, just do it. I beg you, don't sit and stagnate on it and leave it as a pipe dream, because it won't get you anywhere, and it doesn't really help. All it does is make you feel like there's something missing, and until you make that first step, you'll never make it the full way. And on that ranted note, I guess that ties it up. That's it. That's the album overview finished. Thank you so much for coming, guys. Honestly, I really, really appreciate it. It means so much to me. I didn't expect it to make me feel quite as emotional as it has, but yeah, it's been a very powerful experience. I'm really glad I did this, especially with being so nervous when I first started as well. But the guy in the story, save him. Oh, right, okay, a guy in the story, yeah. I'm sure we'll get some nice conclusion to it in the end. I don't particularly like sad or like unhappy endings, so we'll see what comes of the tracks and how it all ties in nicely, and then yeah, I'm sure he'll get his happy ending or some form of that anyway. You've done so good, really enjoyed this. I'm glad, guys, honestly. Thank you for sitting listening to this long ass stream. Yeah, it definitely went on a lot longer than I did. I don't know if anybody has any questions or stuff at the back of this on anything that I've covered at all, or even anything that I haven't, any other songs, any other albums, any other bits and pieces you guys might be interested in. Feel free to ask. I'll do my best to answer as much as I can. I'm also, I guess, open to taking requests if anybody wants to hear their favourites, because yeah, at this point the stream's done. It's all done and dusted. Once I've finished this, it'll go up as a replay on YouTube too. So if there's anyone here that wants to go back and watch it again, you most certainly can do, because it will be there. You can go back, rewatch, get a better vibe. Or even for those of you that maybe didn't make it for the live, you can go back and sort of catch up and at least somewhat feel like you were a part of it. And I hope you guys will consider joining me on the next time that I do this, for the next album or whatever it might be. Thanks for the lovely evening. You're totally welcome, all of you. But thank you, Simone and Joseph, for joining as well. For anyone who might not be aware, these are the two devs from Virtual Cottage, and they're probably some of my favourite people on the planet. Thank you so much for turning up, guys, honestly. It's been so nice. It's kind of like the shoes on the other foot now. Like, I remember watching the interview with you two guys on the Tamer stream as well, and I felt exactly the same way. I was so interested in what you guys had to say and what you had to share. So thank you for returning the favour. It means so much to me. I have one request before I go to bed until we meet again. Any songs in the bank for the next album? Ooh, them some questions. Of course, you're the man. Thank you, Joseph. Proud of you, my man. Well fucking done. From the album to the stream and review, beautifully done. Thank you. There was some hiccups here and there, but I think I did okay. Okay, so we've got a request for before until we meet again. And then you also want some tidbits on any new songs in the bank. I'm sure I could maybe load up Ableton quickly and show you some of the snippets I have. I don't have many finished songs yet, unfortunately, for the next one, but I can verify that the next album will be lo-fi / chill hop based. It won't be synthwave this time, so it might be more of what people are used to and what they enjoy more. And Until We Meet Again will feature on that album. I'll say that now, that's why it's a single release. And the artwork for it was beautifully done by Simone herself in the chat. And I honestly could not be happier with how it turned out. It is night and day, like the perfect interpretation of what I could imagine the album I want to sound like. Thank you so much, Simone, for that too. Honestly, even if I don't know how much people appreciate art, but I really appreciate it. And I find myself sitting looking at it all the time. My desktop background is actually that album art that you made, because it's so beautiful. It really is. It's beautiful. Okay, so what first? I guess for you, Verky, just for you, Boo, I can play Until We Meet Again, and then you can head off to your slumber. Oh yeah, that reminds me actually. Let me just, I really enjoyed making it. Thanks for the kind words. No problem, Simone. No problem at all. Thank you for the beautiful work that you create and you put out into the world. And thank you both for making the games that you do and having people so included in it. Virtual Cottage and all your other games, your puzzle games and stuff. People love it. And you guys, I can see you guys going so far, honestly. I'm super excited for you guys' future. And I'll be keeping very close tabs on it. Is that the right one? I believe that's the right one. And I'm unmuted on Discord. Yup. Say hi to the stream, guys.
Hello.
That's the beautiful mods that have been helping the chat go and speaking and stuff. Appreciate it for the 2 years. It's been nice.
Oh, this is wavy.
I don't have to you'll hear yourself twice in the stream, I suppose, but I figured I would let you guys
twice.
loose. You can hear me twice. Oh yeah, shit, no, that's what I meant.
Echo.
I guess I can drag the artwork over actually. Sit on the YouTube. There you go, guys. There's the beautiful art that Simone did. I absolutely love it. I'm in love with it. But yeah, here you go, Riz. This is for you.
It's gorgeous.
It really is. She's so talented. So talented. Might need to turn it up actually. There we go. That is Until We Meet Again. It's a very interesting track. Yeah, I guess I'm taking the other requests if anybody has any. If not, then I could maybe sneak peek some of the newer tracks. I'll maybe only do one or two though, because I don't want to give it all away. Let's have a look and see. Death Itself. Okay, that's noted. In fact, I could maybe play that before I go on Ableton. No worries. Let's go. Where are you? There you are. There it is.
But when a willing victim who has committed no treachery was killed in a traitor's stead, a stone table crack, for even death itself
I was 16, me and mom were all alone. Couldn't call someone my dad, yeah, I never felt at home, and I didn't know how. Inside my stupid head, skipping school and taking drugs would have me nearly fucking dead. Everyone around me kept on telling me to quit, but I couldn't ever face them cause I always felt like shit. You were always by my side and always first to say you were praying that tomorrow comes to bring a different day. And I always hated you talking about my life cause I didn't want to live. I take your stupid ass advice. I'd rather be under the ground where I could sleep away the days, never thinking about my future or the panic or the hate. Then one day I made a call that this would be the end, so I let my mind evaporate and won't be seen again. I left the house and grew up in tears rolling down my face, tied a noose around my neck and started hanging above my grave.
Ease up in the drum, spend more time with you because you're not feeling important, and I'm not gonna be able to do that. And really, I'm just gonna start to resent you for even asking me to stop drumming, and we're just gonna start to hate each other, and it's gonna be ugly. And so, for those reasons, I'd rather just, break it off clean. Because I'm gonna be.
Yeah, I guess it's always kinda been like this. I can't make room for dreaming. I was built like this. I know it's kinda hard, you choose to live like this, but now begin to notice I was built for this. Yeah, now look, I know it ain't a secret, I wouldn't tell you anyway, you probably wouldn't keep it. The world is full of actors, leaders full of crooks. I think they took a fish in, it seems they got us hooked. The media is toxic, television's worse. Depression's reaching everyone, forcing them to work. They push you and they pull you till you're lying in the hearse. And I'm getting kinda worried cause it's spreading like a curse. Damn, nah, I ain't gonna live like that. You can't be serious, you think like that? Well, I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm here revealing the truth. And if you don't like it, then send me someone who do.
And when I can see you, you treat me like shit because I'm just some girl who doesn't know what she wants. And you have a path, and you're going to be great, and I'm going to be forgotten. And therefore, you won't be able to give me the time of day because you have bigger things to pursue.
That's exactly my point.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
There we have it. There's Death Itself. I love that track, I really do. I love the fact that Jadex jumped on it with me as well. Did such a good job. What was the other one? Escape, right? Yeah. Why is this bugged? Absolute banger. Thank you. No worries, man. Thank you. I'm glad you were here. Thank you for helping. Will do, man. You too. Good night. I can't hear him leave because I've got streamer mode on. Right, where are we? Escape. Here we are. Ah, I was talking that whole time and unmuted the wrong channel. Eek. Oh well. Oh, well, at least it happened right at the end of the stream and not fucking halfway through, right? Jesus. I was just saying, like, I think Michael, yeah, you said, Michael, that it was one of the best songs, hands down, that I've made. And I said that I really enjoyed it and that it was a really lovely, like, a journey making the song. Like, it kind of, like, there was never any, like, rush to finish it. It just kind of did its own thing and took its own time. And kind of took my hand and was like, come this way, this is how this track's going to sound. And I was like, yeah, okay, take me, show me the way. And that was how Escape kind of came around. Really, really chill track. I love listening to it when I'm like sleepy because it just totally zones me out into that space where you're ready to just conk out. There's a specific sound in there you'll need to show me later how you made. Yeah, I could do. It might not. You might be disappointed to find out that it might not actually be a sound that I made. Not a song, a sound. Sorry. Like I did definitely use some samples in that, but I tried to, like, you know, not do that too much. Like, it's not just an entire track made out of samples. In fact, I could probably get it up and show you on stream if that would interest anyone. You could see the nitty gritty as to how Escape was made. Better be, because I've been chasing it for a while. Let's hope. It might have been a sound I made. I can't remember, to be honest. But yeah, I'll demo a couple of tracks from the new EP or new album. Sorry, and like I say, these are very rough. They're not in any way finished. They're just little ideas, little sprinkles to kind of give me an idea what direction I want to take them, so that when I come back to them, I can finish them off. But yeah, for what's here, feel free to just take it as a little tease as to what's coming and enjoy it. Here's the first track. I'll maybe play another one, and then I'll jump onto Escape and show you that. Yeah, there you go. There's one tease. Like I say, it's definitely not finished. There's a lot of work needing to be done to that, but as a general idea, it gives you a sort of flavour as to what the vibe's going to be. I'm quite excited for these tracks, to be honest, because they're definitely different from some of the lo-fi sort of chill hop stuff I've made before. I feel like there's a lot of elements coming from other genres in these ones, as opposed to some of the others. But yeah, I'm not going to show you my file names because some of them are very song one or finish this idiot and stuff like that. My naming algorithms are not the best, so I'll open them from elsewhere. What else have we got? This one. What's this one? I love that though. Love what the fact that my naming algorithm's so weird, or the fact that like these tracks aren't finished. Oh no, never mind. You'd be talking about the fact that like there's other elements coming into these tracks, right? Yeah, sorry. I've kind of forgot what I'd even already said, to be honest with you. Again, I don't really know what I can't actually remember some of these, which is shocking, but yeah, this is another one, so take this with whatever pinch of salt you like. There's song 2. Again, just a little idea, but there's definitely something there to like warrant it changing or turning into something more. I just need to get my arse into gear and start finishing stuff. I wanted to get this Sentience album out first though, before I could focus on anything else, because it was taking up my entire like brain space. It's hard to work on anything else when that was just sitting there. Go on then, I guess we could do one more. Let's do this one. I don't know what this one is either, but you'll find out. I'm sure more will crop up as time goes on, but at least as a basic standpoint, this will give you an idea. And there you go. There's 3 little teasers of tracks from the new album. It's by no means anything major or like, oh my god, I can't believe it, but it's something. They'll definitely get there in time. I just need to start crafting. Okay, so for you, Michael, you said you wanted to see... Where is it? It'll be in... here. Which one is it? That's not it. That's definitely not it. That'll not be it either. Escape, there it is, yeah. Okay, got it. I remember I called the file for this Beats to Study to because it reminded me so much of like the lo-fi music you see on those like YouTube videos and stuff, like the big chill mixes. So yeah, that's initially what the song was called up until the point that I ended up calling it Escape in the end. Quite a funny sort of like Easter egg, I guess. There it is there, right at the top, Beats to Study to. I should probably switch transition, right, to go to my main screen, because that would definitely make more sense. What do you think of the new transition, by the way? It's really clean, right? I quite like it. I'm quite happy with it. Yeah, so this is Escape. You'll need to tell me what sound it was you heard though, Michael, because I don't really know like what sound it is specifically you're referring to. Unless you want me to just play it and you could tell me when it starts playing. I mean, we did just listen to it not that long ago, but yeah, this is what Escape looks like in audio form. Imagine that, right? I'll let you know. Right, okay. I'll just play it then. So, it starts with this big piano got some chord shifting going on. It's in B minor. And then I've got the hybrid keys from Contact. Then we go into the drums, percussion. Got a lot of different drums on this drum rack. Got some reverb on the drums. Drum bus to drive it, compress it. Auto filter to just kind of bring them in gradually as it climbs. This is what music making actually looks like. It's a total nightmare, but it is kind of cool to watch, to be fair. And the big vocal from Arcade. It's one of the pinnacles of that track. Track 6. I think 6 is my bass, no? I believe 6 is the bass. Yep, it is indeed. Oh, whoops. I can probably hide that for now. Just need to be there. It's that felty piano thing in the background. What, this? That sound there? No. Track 8? That's some kind of flute, mate. That's like a... Yeah, it's like a wind instrument. What the fuck? Sounds weird when you hear it out of context with the rest of the track, right? It's kind of just on its own and it's kind of minging. It's not that, right? Okay. Yeah, that's also in there. That gives it this sort of flavour. So it'll probably be this. Yeah, I think that's what you're talking about, right? Yeah, that's a sample. It's from Cymatics. That's it, yeah. It's a Cymatic sample. It's from the Oracle sample pack, which I believe is free on the website, by the way, so if you wanted to get it that bad, you could probably go grab it, but yeah, Cymatics make a lot of really good samples, and a lot of the time, they don't necessarily just you don't have to make an entire song out of just a sample. You can use them as elements to blend with other stuff that you've made already, which is what I love about it. They make a lot of really, really good sample packs. I highly rate them. Highly, highly rate them. Love whatever this is. Yeah, it's just a little lo-fi kind of felt piano sample. It's heavily EQ'd though to try and remove a lot of the resonance in it because it was really resonant before. Thank you, sir. That's no worries, mate. Anytime. I remember there was another song sound that you said you liked as well. I believe it was this one. Yeah, that pluck. They also tend to add MIDI files for the samples too. Oh yeah. You're right, Gibby, you're right. Yeah, they also add MIDI, and a lot of the time they'll also isolate. I shouldn't be saying this while I'm playing music because you can't hear me. Though a lot of the sample packs have the MIDI separate for the samples that are in the pack, which is really good because you can then take the MIDI and use your own sounds on it. But what the fuck is that bass that's just resonating in the background? Weird. They also tend to split their samples, the actual samples themselves, into folders as well, and then just add each incremental layer that makes up the whole sample in parts. So you can then just strip parts out of that sample. Maybe there's a flute in the background of that sample that you like. You can take the flute from the pack individually on its own and use that in a track instead of using the whole sample with the flute, if that makes sense. So it's really good. That sound reminds me of the music in old Pokemon games for some reason. Which one? This sort of piano-y thing? No, the synthy pluck. I could see that a little bit. It's got that kind of ominous... Yeah. I have so many Cymatics packs, it's ridiculous. Same, dude, same. Look at this, right? See where my cursor is right now? This is my Cymatics folder. And these are all the packs that I've got from Cymatics. It scrolls all the way down to about there. I've got loads, way too many. Some of them are bought as well. I've like bought stuff and reminds me of Lavender Town's theme. Yeah, that's what I was thinking actually. That was the connotation that was the conclusion that I'd drawn as well. There's so many elements that make up these tracks that you would just never believe until you see them laid out like this. It's all just random sort of little sax. For those of you that love sax, I know I do. And then these little samples at the end. It's quite pretty even on its own, that actually. Could probably make a whole different track out of that. It's very Asian sounding. I really like that. And then we've got whatever this is. I think this is a harp. Yeah, it is. The thing is, when you hear them on their own, they could easily be their own elements, but then when you put them in the context of the rest of the track, they're just ambience, they're just background noise. Like, you barely even really hear them, they just add flavour to what's already there. It's kind of crazy. Can I just point out the night core in your sample folder? Ah, yes. This was actually for something specific. It's from I couldn't get like the original version of it, so I had to get the Nightcore version and then just slow it like right down and then tweak it. But it's not like I don't actively listen to Nightcore. It's a song that I was going to make for something else. I can't remember what exactly, but it's really pretty. I gotta run. Thanks a lot for the cool stream and all the insights on how you approach creating your music. It was really inspiring and motivating. Looking forward to your future creations. Thanks, Joseph. Thanks a lot for coming, man. It honestly means a lot. Hey, a good one. You too, man. You and Simone. Take it easy. Take care. Love yous both. I have a lot of really random samples in here. I don't even know what they are. A lot of them make zero sense. I probably can't play that song on stream though, because I'll get like shafted for it. It's probably copyrighted. I shouldn't. Yeah, I have a lot of samples in here. It's always nice to just go in and grab something as well, like just, anything. It can help with inspiration sometimes when you're stuck. Yep, certainly some interesting sounds and stuff anyway. Plenty there for the flavour and just like creating music in general. It's good fun. I do love Ableton. As much as I hate it, I love it too. You need to start putting out more music, Mr. Michael Stewart, actually, now that I think about it. You released Dreeme and then you never released any track of it after that, and it kind of frustrates me because you have so much fucking potential to put out good music. We also haven't collaborated on anything yet, and that also kind of upsets me. It needs to happen. How about one day? But if you keep saying one day it'll never happen, if you just like bite the bullet and do it soon, like, you know. Especially when you're playing guitar and stuff as well, there's so much you could do with the music, but you make stuff and then you just leave it, like what I used to do as well. It's a shame to put all that talent to waste, mate. Been saying that for years. Like, would you rename the one I love again? I need to know so I can annoy you about it daily. Let me find it. Where is it? I can close these now as well, actually. Start tidying up my thing a little bit. Where is songs and ideas? It's in here, and it's this one here. I should probably call the stream soon though, because it's been going for 3 hours now. I feel like that's already too long. Plus it'll give everybody else a chance to come back and watch it later or whatever, if need be. This is the song you were thinking of, Amy. Yep, there we go. There's that track that's never ever been released. Can't even articulate why well enough to put into words, but this song has my whole heart. I will release it. I promise I will. Even if I just release it as a single, like I'll put it out. I actually had some ideas for vocals while I was listening through that again for some reason. So maybe we'll see what comes of it. Maybe I'll put some vocals in and stuff as well and try and drive it a bit further. But yeah, now I'm gonna have people in my comments screaming at me for like all these songs that they've heard but aren't actually out, and they'll be like, "Oh, I want to listen to it." So I do apologise if you really enjoyed that and it isn't actually out on any platform for you to listen to. But yeah, this is my music making journey. I've got so many tracks just sitting here. Oh, you know what I could do actually? I could tease one of my cyberpunk tracks, and then I guess we'll call it from there. We'll call the stream and say it's done. This one. But nah, this stream will be up afterwards, so if you guys want to come back and watch it again or anything like that, and it'll be there. For those of you that missed it as well, Kiri on vocals maybe, question mark. Ah, yeah, Kiri on vocals, question mark. But yeah, if anyone missed the stream and is now sort of coming back and watching it, if you've even made it this far through, then I appreciate you too. Thank you for taking the time to catch up on it. I'm sorry you weren't here before. Maybe you can catch the next one, but thank you so much. Thank you for supporting me. Thank you for subbing. Thank you for giving me your time and your effort and appreciating the work that I put into these tracks. I hope they make a difference. But yeah, I guess we'll go out with a slight bang, and I'll tease in this little cyberpunk track that I've been working on. It's quite good.
System online.
Tracking.
Hacking terminal.
Virus detected.
Terminal access granted. It was never about keeping the people safe. If you have received this encrypted message, then it's already too late.
And there it ends. So yeah, you've got that to look forward to, folks. Some Cyberpunk 2088. Yeah, something like that, yeah. I don't know, I played Blade Runner. I don't know if anyone else has played that game, but oh my god, the soundtrack to that game is so fucking good. And I think that was a lot of what inspired this. Fuck it. Where's the other one? I have another one somewhere. I guess I could quickly show that one too, and then we definitely will call it quits because I need to stop sharing music, otherwise I'll be here all day. Where is it? It'll be in here somewhere. Actually, I think it's in the same folder as everything else. Yep, there is. This is what I actually saw in my head when it was playing. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just, the soundtrack to that game is so fucking good, dude. It's so well done, and it really captures that sort of cyberpunky feel. And I just really wanted to make something like that. So yeah, that's my amalgamation. To anyone out there who happens to listen and really likes cyberpunk, then you've got that to look forward to at some point in the near future once I get it finished. But yeah, I definitely want to make like a dark synth kind of cyberpunk album. That'd be lit, or even an EP. Doesn't have to be an album. Yeah, this is one of the other tracks that might fall into that category. So I'll leave you with this, and then just repeats after that. But yeah, that one, I do really like that one as well. The issue I'm struggling with at the moment with the like cyberpunk music especially is like, because there's so little melodic elements in it, it's really hard to figure out how to progress the track without it just being the same thing on loop constantly forever. So filthy bass, yeah, it really is. I love that bass line so much. I love the grungy, like dirty, like punch in the face kind of bass. It's lovely. But yeah, trying to find the progressions for these songs is a bit difficult without them just becoming stale and the same shit constantly recycled. But I'm sure I'll get there in due time. I just need to sit down with it. It's got that signature, like dreamy-esque fucking, or Dreeme-esque synth in it as well, the big heavy coated reverb synth. But yeah, I'll stop now before I keep going forever. I'm sure people would have an issue with that, but yeah, it's been an absolute blast, guys. Thank you so much for coming and showing up and supporting me and helping me through it. It's been amazing. Going to bed now. Thank you so much for the awesome stream. No worries, Simone. Have a good sleep. Thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting me in what I do. It means so much. I think I'm going to call the stream here as well, but yeah, honestly, thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute blast. I've really enjoyed getting deep into the nitty gritties of some music for a while, sharing it with like-minded people. It's been good fun. But yeah, I think that's about it for me, guys. I'll drop that intro one last time, and then maybe play some music for the outro, or maybe I'll just end it. Actually, I can't be bothered playing music. There's no point. Thanks for the stream. No worries, Gibby. No worries at all. Thank you for coming, man. Again, I really appreciate it. You guys are just the coolest ever. So supportive. Amazing friends. Couldn't ask for anything more. I will return the love if and when I ever can. If you guys ever put music out or anything like that, I'll always be there to support. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thank you so much. And I imagine I'll speak to a few of you later on. To the rest of you, have a good night. Have a wonderful night. Take it easy. Enjoy the album. Make the most of it. You get the drill. Alright, guys. Peace.